Good morning, unemployed incels. I know you will enjoy this video because if this nigga followed your ways and just decided to jerk off like you do all day, he would still be enjoying one of the greatest YouTube careers of all time. I am Celebrities Debunked, here to debunk another celebrity. Before the headlines, before the courtrooms, before his name became attached to words that now follow him everywhere, Young Philly was simply a personality people trusted. He was loud without being threatening, confident without appearing cruel, and flirtatious in a way that audiences interpreted as harmless fun. He came across as the kind of person who brought energy into a room, the type of friend people imagined they would want around them. For years, that image protected him. It softened how people interpreted his behavior and reframed his excesses as jokes, confidence, or just part of the culture.
Hi, I'm Philly, I'm 25, I'll be on it. Clap.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Alright, do you know what? You're a dickhead. I do know what you're doing.
And that is where this story truly begins. Not in Australia, not in a hotel room, but in the space where charm quietly turns into entitlement and where repeated indulgence slowly removes the idea of restraint. Young Philly, whose real name is Andres Felipe, started building his online presence in 2013. Like many creators of that era, his early content revolved around comedy skits, public interviews, and music-related appearances. His personality stood out immediately. He was expressive, outspoken, and visibly comfortable commanding attention. That comfort became his currency. Viewers responded to it, collaborators leaned into it, and platforms rewarded it. Over time, his loud confidence became his brand. People did not just recognize him, they expected him to behave a certain way. Flirtatious comments, physical humor, and boundary-pushing jokes were no longer exceptions. They were features.
Why is it all the gal in Manny got big backs?
Oh Lord.
No, whoa, come back. This is a real question. So why is you lot's batty so plumbed?
It's something in the water, man.
In the water? Okay. Yeah, what you prefer? You more breast or ass?
I do like a nice ass.
Yeah. You say ass. See, I say back. I say big back. So speaking of big backs, does your thing jig or is it firm?
I don't want to be on no camera.
As his popularity grew, so did the environments he moved through. Collaborations with Chunks pushed him further into the mainstream, turning them into one of the most recognizable duos in UK YouTube culture. Appearances on Foot Asylum and Pro Direct Soccer expanded his reach even more, and his role on Does the Shoe Fit cemented him as a central figure in content built around attraction, rejection, and desire. That show in particular mattered because it framed sexual confidence not just as acceptable, but as entertainment. His unfiltered humor was praised. His boldness was rewarded. The more he leaned into it, the more attention he received. Traditional media followed soon after. Hosting roles on BBC Three projects like Hot Property and Don't Scream signaled a shift from internet personality to mainstream entertainer. Even The Guardian commented on his youthful on-screen presence, describing it as something so energetic it felt almost untouchable. By 2023, Young Philly was no longer just a YouTuber. He was a fully established media figure. At that point, it appeared as though there was no ceiling. Brands trusted him, audiences defended him, and the industry treated him as reliable. What mattered most is that none of this success came with visible restraint. There was no public recalibration, no visible moment where boundaries were reinforced. The behavior that brought him fame continued uninterrupted. As his status increased, so did his access. Touring, club appearances, after parties, and hotel stays became routine. These were not isolated moments. They were part of a lifestyle built around nightlife and performance. Alcohol was present, power imbalances were inherent, and privacy was abundant. In environments like these, desire often goes unchecked, especially when someone believes their status shields them from consequences. Over time, repetition matters. When someone repeatedly moves through spaces where attention is constant and accountability feels distant, behavior can escalate quietly. What once required consent becomes assumed. What once required caution becomes routine. On the night of September 27, 2024, Young Philly was performing at Bar One nightclub in Australia as part of a tour. The venue was known for hosting international artists, and the atmosphere followed the familiar pattern of performance, alcohol, and celebration. After the event ended, he returned to a hotel room in Perth. According to Australian authorities, a woman in her 20s later reported that she had been sexually assaulted inside that room on September 28th. In the days that followed, police gathered statements, reviewed injuries, and began piecing together what had allegedly occurred. By the time an arrest was issued, Young Philly had already traveled to Brisbane for the next stop on his tour. Officers detained him there on October 8, 2024. before extraditing him back to Perth. That extradition alone signaled that the situation had escalated beyond rumor or online speculation. During his first court appearance, the tone surrounding the case shifted dramatically. Prosecutors revealed that the accusations involved multiple counts, including sexual penetration without consent, assault occasioning bodily harm, and impeding breathing by applying pressure to the neck. The presentation of photographs showing the woman's injuries marked a turning point. Prosecutors described the evidence in blunt terms, arguing that the circumstances made consent impossible. Police opposed bail, stating that he was a flight risk and emphasizing the strength of their case, which they said included CCTV footage from the night in question. The language used in court was severe, and the details dominated headlines almost immediately. Despite objections from prosecutors, young Philly was eventually granted bail under strict conditions. These included a ban on contacting the complainant, a restriction preventing him from discussing the case online, and an order requiring him to remain in Western Australia. His bail reportedly cost around $100,000. He later pleaded not guilty to all charges. Still, the damage had already begun. Allegations of this magnitude do not exist in isolation. They attach themselves to everything that came before. Every clip, every joke, every moment once dismissed as harmless began to take on new meaning. In the months that followed, the allegations alone were enough to overshadow everything young Philly had built. But even at this stage, the story was not finished. Additional charges would later be filed, and a trial date scheduled far into the future, ensuring that his name would remain attached to these accusations for years. For now, part one of this story ends where public perception began to fracture. A man once celebrated for his energy and confidence was now facing accusations that reframed his past behavior in a much darker light. What had once been dismissed as jokes or personality traits were no longer protected by laughter or context. The rise had been built on indulgence. The fall, it seemed, was only beginning. By the time additional charges were filed, the damage was no longer theoretical. It was measurable. Months after his initial arrest, 2 more counts of sexual penetration without consent were added to the case. A 10-day trial was scheduled for July 2026, nearly 2 years away. That gap mattered. It meant that regardless of the eventual outcome, young Philly would exist in a state of suspension for an extended period of time. His name would remain tied to these accusations in every search, every comment section, every discussion. Time itself became a punishment, and for someone whose career depended on momentum, visibility, and public trust, time was not neutral. It was corrosive. What made the situation worse was that even under strict bail conditions, the pattern of impulse did not stop. In December 2024, while still out on bail for the Australian sexual assault case, young Philly appeared in Perth Magistrates Court again, this time for an entirely separate issue. He admitted to driving at 158 kilometers per hour on Roe Highway, roughly 100 miles per hour, well above the legal limit. This was not a minor infraction. It happened while he was already under intense legal scrutiny, with conditions that required him to demonstrate responsibility and restraint. His car was immediately impounded, and he later entered a guilty plea for reckless driving. Although the charge did not attract the same level of media attention as the assault allegations, it reinforced an emerging picture. Even when the stakes were obvious, he struggled to regulate his behavior. The problem was not isolated to one category of conduct. It was a broader inability to slow down. Just as public attention began to settle around the Australian case, the situation escalated again. This time, the allegations came from an entirely different country. Reports emerged that a British tourist had accused young Philly of assault during a holiday in Magaluf, Spain. According to early accounts, she encountered him at a beach club where he was performing, later crossed paths with him again at a nightclub, and eventually ended up in a hotel room with several people, including one of his friends. She stated that she had consensual sex with a friend earlier that night, but that once she was alone with young Philly, the situation changed. She did not report the incident immediately in Spain. Instead, she waited until returning to the United Kingdom, where she filed a report with British police. The case was then passed to the Spanish Civil Guard and forwarded to a judge in Palma, who officially opened a criminal investigation. Spain's legal system operates differently from those in the UK or Australia. Investigations are conducted largely behind closed doors, with no public hearings and limited updates until a trial is confirmed. What was confirmed, however, was that a magistrate requested formal cooperation from Australian authorities to question young Philly under oath on Spain's behalf. The implication was unavoidable. While already facing multiple charges in Australia, he was now under investigation in a second country for a separate alleged assault. For many observers, this was the moment where the narrative shifted permanently. One serious case might have been framed as an isolated incident, two investigations in different countries suggested something else entirely. As often happens in high-profile cases, defenders emerged. A TikTok creator named Big Jai uploaded a video publicly apologizing to young Philly and challenging the Perth accusations.
So before I go further into this video, I'd just like to take this time to apologize to young Philly, to apologize to any of his friends, his family, anyone associated with him. And I would also like to apologize to any rappers in the UK who has seen this and has been affected and now feel some type of way about us females in Australia. I deeply apologize. We are not like that. There are certain individuals that like to take things too far, and it gives the rest of us a bad name. I truly and sincerely apologize to all of you guys, and on behalf of everyone in Australia that has sense, we are sorry. So the media is concealing who this female is. So everyone's like, who is this mysterious female? This mysterious female is Miss Emma Burns, the one and only stripper and sex worker. Round of applause for Miss Emma Burns, ya sharmuta.
She went as far as naming the woman who accused him and alleging that the encounter had been consensual. She claimed messages sent afterward contradicted the assault allegations and suggested that the situation had been exaggerated. The video spread quickly, drawing intense backlash. Many criticized her for publicly attacking an alleged victim and involving herself in an ongoing criminal case. Instead of stabilizing the situation, the defense only deepened the divide and intensified scrutiny. An ex-partner of young Philly also spoke publicly, stating that her personal experiences with him had been positive and that he had never forced her into anything.
I actually know Philly, so at least the people that are watching this can have something based on someone that actually knows him and not people speculating and just know him from seeing him on the internet and girth and turf. Philly is someone that I know and get on with, right, okay? I'm not here to say things did or didn't happen. All I'm here to say, to tell you even, is my side of the story. My experiences with Philly made me feel comfortable.
While some viewers initially considered this perspective, it ultimately changed little. The prevailing response was simple. One person's good experience does not negate another's trauma. By this point, the public was no longer weighing individual statements. They were looking at patterns. The consequences that followed were swift and unforgiving. His YouTube channel began losing subscribers by the tens of thousands. Instagram unfollows piled up. TikTok engagement collapsed, with more than 200,000 followers disappearing. Brands moved quickly to distance themselves. Foot Asylum released a statement acknowledging the seriousness of the charges and paused all association. ASOS removed promotional material featuring him. Heinz pulled a collaboration that had launched only days earlier. A streetwear brand called Perplex deleted an entire clothing line built around his image. Even the Sidemen quietly removed their video featuring him, offering no explanation. Television followed suit. A dating series produced by Gymshark that had already been filmed was never aired. His live tour with Chunks vanished from ticketing websites overnight. Upload Productions publicly confirmed that they had paused working with him. In a matter of weeks, young Philly went from being one of the most sponsored creators in the UK to someone brands classified as high risk. As this happened, old clips resurfaced everywhere. Moments that had once been played for laughs were now examined frame by frame. Flirtatious comments, physical jokes, interactions with young women that once seemed awkward but harmless. Under the weight of the allegations, these clips were no longer neutral. Context had changed. What was once dismissed as lab behavior was now viewed as potential warning signs. People who had met him began sharing their own impressions, some describing him as arrogant off camera, others claiming he acted aggressively around women. The public narrative was no longer being shaped by fans. It was being shaped by accumulation. Eventually, after months of strict bail conditions in Australia, a judge granted young Philly permission to return to the UK temporarily. His bail terms were adjusted, allowing him to spend several months at home under heavy restrictions. He was required to surrender his passport upon return to Australia, post additional financial guarantees, and keep location services enabled on all electronic devices. Since returning, he stayed mostly out of the spotlight, though he became more active on Snapchat. Casual posts about hair, bikes, and daily life were met with criticism. Many viewed these updates as attempts to monetize whatever platforms he still had access to, especially as legal costs mounted and brand income disappeared. Public reaction remained harsh. Photos of him with family sparked backlash. Appearances alongside former collaborators reopened wounds that had not healed. Some creators expressed concern for his mental state. Others criticized him for behaving as though nothing had changed. Throughout it all, the investigations continued. The Australian trial loomed. The Spanish case remained active behind closed doors. Nothing was resolved. Nothing was forgotten. When you step back and look at the full picture, the through line becomes difficult to ignore. This was not the story of a single mistake. It was the story of repeated indulgence without restraint. Fame amplified desire. Desire became entitlement. Entitlement erased boundaries. And when boundaries disappeared, consequences followed. Lust did not ruin young Philly overnight. It was rewarded for years, normalized by audiences, protected by platforms, and excused by laughter. When it finally met resistance, it was already too late. Like and subscribe for more.